Fox News alert, a big day for health care. Senate Republicans getting a first look at a draft of their party's bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. But Democrats aren't happy, calling it even worse than the House bill. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Meghan McCain, former deputy spokesperson for the State Department, Marie Harf, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, the host of the David Webb Show on the Sirius XM Patriot Channel. David Webb is here, and he is outnumbered, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say on this moment right now.
I've had 3 hours of what to say on this moment. You know what I've said? Join me right here on Outnumbered.
Yeah, I love that about you, by the way. Your new show is rocking at XM right across the street.
Yeah, I come right across the street. I have 3 hours to set everybody up, and they're looking at this healthcare discussion. Right before I came here, I played the Senate floor, and you could, between Patty Murray, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, I mean, it's 185 pages. Nobody's read it, but they've all decried on it.
All right.
It is fun to watch.
Save it, because we got to get a report first. The Senate GOP leadership unveiling for the first time a 142-page discussion draft of their health care bill. The measure would cut and revamp Medicaid and repeal tax increases under Obamacare. President Trump weighing in on a short time ago, calling Obamacare a disaster and saying hopefully we'll get something with heart. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says this bill is even worse than the one passed in the House.
It's every bit as bad as the House bill. In some ways, it's even worse. The president said the Senate bill needed heart. The way this bill cuts health care is heartless. The president said the House bill was mean. The Senate bill may be meaner. The Senate Republican health care bill is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Only this wolf has even sharper teeth than the House bill.
But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says Democrats are wrong.
Sound like Obamacare is working? Now Democrats tell us it'd be wrong for the Senate to actually address these problems in a serious way, while the law they've defended for 7 years teeters, literally teeters on the edge of total collapse. They were wrong before, they're wrong again now.
Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel in the middle of it all, live from Capitol Hill. What's the latest, Mike?
Well, Sandra, it's hot off the presses, and Republican senators are reading it at this hour to see if they can support it. Senate Republican leaders say this new health care proposal would stabilize collapsing insurance markets. It would not contain a requirement to purchase insurance, would improve affordability of health insurance, would preserve access to care for pre-existing conditions, and would strengthen Medicaid by giving states more flexibility. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says lawmakers have an obligation to address this problem.
We agree on the need to stabilize the insurance markets that are collapsing under Obamacare as well, and policies contained in the discussion draft will implement stabilization policies so we can bring financial certainty to insurance markets and hope to Americans who face the possibility of limited or zero options next year under Obamacare.
Healthcare is, of course, all the buzz here today on Capitol Hill. McConnell's in a tight spot, needing almost all of his 52 Republicans to support this plan. GOP leaders hope to get the analysis from the Congressional Budget Office in terms of price and impact as soon as tomorrow or perhaps Monday. Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer was quick to attack the new bill.
We know that the Republicans and Democrats had differences when we debated the Affordable Care Act. At least we had a debate. At least we had committee hearings and a process. And more broadly than that, at least we Democrats were trying to pass a health care bill that helped more Americans afford insurance and tried to bring costs down.
McConnell fired back that Schumer had not even read the bill since it was just posted on the Senate budget website. Here is something that will get the attention of Republican leaders. A very good source tells me in about an hour, a statement is due out from at least 3 Republican senators saying they cannot support the bill. If that holds, that would be enough to stop this bill from passing in the United States Senate. Sandra?
Rand Paul.
All right, Mike Emanuel, thank you. Some discussion on the couch here already.
Absolutely, because that was interesting there at the end, right?
And it really sets things up. Can we go first to Chuck Schumer's comments there?
Yeah.
And McConnell sort of went after him saying, hold on a second, this literally just posted, but yet you're already saying that this is heartless and will never work. So this is a very confusing process. Make it simpler.
The timing actually shows Chuck Schumer for what he is, which is a partisan act. I had this on my show, and we were watching the Senate floor. He didn't have time to read it after it was posted, but he was ready with a prepared statement. But this is the problem. The Democrats are not interested in even reading the bill, debating the bill. They simply want to go out and attack it. They say that only Democrats, that's what Chuck Schumer says, only Democrats want to do something to help the American people. But in a listening session yesterday on Obamacare, Secretary Price and others sat there in the White House with Americans who were harmed. They were the victims, as a matter of fact, of Obamacare. What about helping them?
It does seem like they're sticking on that message, Marie.
Well, look, we had hundreds of hours of committee hearings about Obamacare. We are not going to have any committee hearings about this. There's only going to be at most 20 hours of debate on the Senate floor for something that touches 1/6 of our economy. No Democrats were asked to be part of the drafting process. Most Republicans weren't asked to be part of it. So I agree. We should read the bill. We should get a CBO score, which hopefully will come later this week or early next week. And then we should talk about what's in it. But if it cuts Medicaid like we've seen it will, 1/5 of Americans get their coverage from Medicaid, 2/3 of Americans in nursing homes. If they lose that coverage because of the deep cuts to Medicaid that will likely come from this, people like John Kasich, a Republican who runs my home state of Ohio, they don't like that, and voters won't like that.
But it's not a cut of Medicaid, it's a phase down, which has been a compromise for moderates. And when you're talking about the statement that's going to come out, it's being reported that it's Rand Paul. This is no surprise. The same problems that happened in the Congress are now manifesting themselves in the Senate, if this is even able to get through. Because the compromise, we knew one way or another there would be one, and it looks like they hedged towards more moderates at this point. People like John Kasich. I think that we are hedging ourselves in a way that is a little tenuous right now with these timelines. And again, Orrin Hatch just said there are a lot of differing points of view on healthcare, the healthcare bill, which is a real problem in pushing it through. Orrin Hatch.
So we know that they had a...
Can I just address Ohio real quick, Harris? Sorry.
We know that they had a working group, and it was exactly what you said, Megan. It was conservatives and centrists. And so that's kind of how we got to the language, as I understand it, where we are. 142 pages of this discussion draft. It drops the mandate. It eliminates taxes on the wealthy with regard to their health care. So it does a couple of things that people were talking about in terms of loosening up the market, if you will. You may peel off a Ted Cruz. You may not get Rand Paul, but you may peel off a Ted Cruz, because this rolls back almost all of Obamacare. So it's like repeal in quotes, if you will. And Ted Cruz, we know, and Rand Paul really wanted to see a repeal. And you may get him if Cruz's language can come in about the across-state competition of insurance companies. So they may be able to get back 2 or 3 of those Republicans. But I don't know what Rand Paul is after.
You may lose Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins on the Planned Parenthood issue. You may lose people like Jeff Flake, Dean Heller, people who have tough races who are getting hit with ads already. So I'm not sure it ever. Do you think it'll pass the Senate? I'm not. Listen, I think we have, since the incarnation of this, been ahead over our skis. We'd have 7 years to get this right. And I don't understand why we can't find some kind of compromise. I think anything is better than Obamacare. Absolutely anything. And if we're looking for absolute purity and perfection, it's never going to pass, because like you're saying, the Republican Party is filled with lots of different perspectives, lots of different constituents to answer to, and it'll be. I'm really fascinated to see what Rand Paul's going to say.
So Mitch McConnell just said, I think we will vote next week, but I don't know that we'll have 50 votes next week. Can he get conservatives and moderates on board here?
We don't know. This is the thing. Back to Megan's point, there are differing views on this, vastly different from what the Democrats did when they lockstep, didn't read a bill, when Nancy Pelosi said pass it before you know what's in it, and they went ahead and put this pox on the American people.
Just hit me.
And by the way,
she was talking to her own people.
Right. And by the way, back to Ohio for a moment with John Kasich and taking the expansion, it is about reducing that. One of the proposals in the House, over 5 years, federal money, our taxpayer dollars, would not go to pay for it. Kasich took it, put it into his general budget, in essence, to hide his big spending. He is not a big fiscal Republican. And in Ohio, Anthem is leaving Ohio and and 20 counties will lose their access to other health care options.
Yeah, they've already left Ohio.
And they've
they're
left
leaving
Indiana and Wisconsin and Indiana.
Yeah.
But Anthem, one of the reasons, and they gave a few reasons for leaving those markets, one of them was the uncertainty that's been created by the congressional Republican process. And it's also Obamacare, it's other things. I'm not totally blaming it on that. But the uncertainty around this process, the false deadline saying vote by July 4th or move on to tax reform, that is adding to the uncertainty in the healthcare market. And when you talk about things like the opioid crisis, I was home in Ohio last week. I talked to a lot of folks about this. A huge majority, in some places over 90% of people getting treatment in the opioid crisis get it through Medicaid. And if we are willing to phase that out, bring that down, I think a lot of voters are going to be uncomfortable with that.
You know, by the numbers, I get it. It's a great headline on the opioid crisis, and I've covered this from day one with Chris Sununu in New Hampshire and other governors. I've known Chris for many years. Is that is not the big number. Bringing it to the headline doesn't reflect the fact that over 70% of Americans get their health care through private employers, how the marketplace really works, rather than selling down and trying to basically destroy the broader system to fix it for a few. Go to the problem of fixing it for the few that need it rather than destroying a marketplace. And Obamacare destroyed the marketplace.
I want to jump in here with some video. We've got some video of the protesters that right now that are outside Senator Mitch McConnell's office being carried and removed. We're told now the video is coming in. So we'll watch this here. They say cuts to Medicaid bill and Senate bill mean life or death to people with disabilities. So we're keeping an eye on Mitch McConnell's office outside. There have been protesters outside of there, but now we're being told that they are being carried and removed from there. Just to give you an idea of the climate that we are in right now.
The passion around this issue is huge, and of course we saw that playing out in the town halls, and now you've got it out literally in a hallway outside Mitch McConnell's office. Not surprising. I know they were interviewing Senator John Thune on Happening Now about an hour ago, and you could barely hear him, the cacophony of the protests from below and behind him. You know, I would say this. It's called the Better Care Reconciliation Act of 2017. Republicans have got to now show how it would be better care.
That's right.
And the messaging on this has got to be really strong. So you've seen a couple of things here recently that were impressive in terms of a consistency of message from the Republicans who've been, you know, tweeting about it, talking about it. The president, again this morning, talking about it after talking last night. I mean, you've got a drumbeat. He's had people to the White House to talk about the flaws and the disruption in the lives that Obamacare has caused, both for small businesses and families. So that Better Care Reconciliation Act part, that title, if you will, has really got to be walked out as it's rolled out. But it hit me when you were talking about Nancy Pelosi. She might have been talking to her own people, telling them not to read it so it would pass. I think a lot of us interpreted that, well, no one's reading it, just pass it. But it's interesting because that may be one of the ways that Democrats avoided the dissension within their party. If you're not reading it, then you can't fight about it.
Right. If you don't actually, and by the way, this is a discussion draft. They've made a big deal out of this, but what does a discussion do? It opens up the table for this. And by the way, the president has also asked Democrats repeatedly, from the campaign trail to now, to come to the table. Let's try to solve the problems. If the CBC won't meet with the president over their own reasons and other Democrats won't even recognize his presidency, then how do you expect to work with Democrats?
It's not even that. I'm curious, just as a political spectator, to see how President Trump is going to take his Twitter account against Rand Paul and people that aren't going to end up voting on this bill. He threatened to go to the primaries with people who did it in Congress, and it'll be fascinating to see if he ends up sort of taking it to the mattresses on Twitter.
And just to reiterate, Mike Emanuel is reporting at least 3 GOP senators are expected to come out with a statement approximately 1 p.m. announcing that they are against this bill, which could be significant. So we'll keep watching for that. President Trump, meanwhile, making a big policy announcement last night in Iowa. Why he says immigrants coming to the U.S. should be prepared to pull their own weight. Plus, grim news for Democrats, including Hillary Clinton. The new polls and fundraising totals showing the party heading in the wrong direction.